Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 717 for the 10th of February. And I have already posted the frontline report. So of course, you as usual, it's on the DPA War channel, but the view is a bit low. Maybe I posted a bit early. So anyway, let's start off with the Southern Front. Over the Southern Front, the Ukrainian forces continue to hold position over at Krinky. The Russians are still attacking as usual. Bombardments reported on Ukrainian forces. Artillery shelling was happening at Krinky. They are still trying to land troops, and on the opposite side, artillery missile, some kind of ballistic missile hit a drone control center on the opposite shore over at Avdiivka. So this is the situation over at Krinky. So this continues to be the tragedy and will continue to unfold. I have no words. I would not even do this in a real-time strategy game. So, and these are real human beings. We move on to Zaporizhzhia Front. So over at the Zaporizhzhia Front, this is Zaporizhzhia city. This is the front line. And we have actions. No, we have no actions over at Orikhiv sector. There's no reports about all this fighting in this region here. And I have to complain. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry did not post their morning report, and I was waiting for it, so I gave up waiting. So I just decided to do recording. There is FPV drones hitting Ukrainian forces in the rear in the northeastern part of Robotine, and on the western part of Robotine we have other also FPV drones attack. So Ukrainian forces and the Russian forces here is on a standstill in this region here. They are unable to fight with each other. And yeah, moving on, we move into the Velika Novosibirsk sector. Similarly, there was no reports of any fighting in this region here, because typically all this information tends to come from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and it also adds on that the Russian Defense Ministry did not do a daily report. They did a weekly summary, and I cannot use a weekly summary for my reporting. So there will be lesser information, it seems. And over at this near Rivnopil, which this Rivnopil, there is video footage geolocated of FPV drones, Russian FPV drone hitting a Ukrainian tank. For those that do not know what is the FPV drone, I just realized I need to explain a bit. It's the kind of a remote control drone where you steer using a VR camera. So that's what it is. So you basically fly the drone as if you are inside the drone, like as if you are flying an airplane. So that is the difference, no? So and moving on away from the Velika Novosibirsk sector into the Donetsk Front. At the Donetsk Front, we have some fighting. There is fighting reported towards Vodian from Mikhailsky, and there's continued fighting over at Novomikhailivka. There's a frontline change in the southwestern part of Novomikhailivka, which suggests that the Russian forces is pushing in that direction, but we have no reports talking about it specifically. The Russians also continue to push toward Khyovivka. So this is the strategic situation in the Donetsk Front. And if we zoom in a bit, we will be able to see a bit more. Towards the highway, this is Voleda, and this is the highway towards Konstantinivka. The Russians are pushing in this direction. The distance between this to the highway, the front line to the highway, is around 4 kilometers. The Russians are reportedly also pushing towards Vodian, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. I'm not sure if in this direction from Mikhailsky, or is it from Solotky towards Vodian. So it could be this one. It could be actually this one. I'm not sure. It could be, but based on our mapping, the way how we map, we will always put it as this one, unless there's clearer information. And you may realize I'm talking a bit slow, because what happened is that I was watching videos of DPA's reporting on the Ukraine war, the SITREP, from the first 3 months of the Ukraine war, and then I realized I was speaking really slowly, and I realized that over time, due to I was trying to speak really fast, to try to shorten the video or try to make things more compact. And yeah, I kind of spoiled the way how I talk, and I started to speak really fast. So yeah, I tried to slow myself down, calm down a bit, zen. And yeah, so Novomihailivka, the Russians are still pushing within Novomihailivka. There is totally no information about Novomihailivka, so no, we shall continue to wait and see how this progress. And the Georgievka region is the one with the front line change. The Russian forces are pushing in the north, and they are having some success. The arrow is ugly. Yeah, and then they're having some problems with the southern push. I think because of the high ground in this region here. I actually should open it in Google Earth. Let's see if we can see this in 3D. So yeah, so if we go down, so the Russians are claiming that because this is the low ground, so which is why they have some trouble. But honestly speaking, it looks really flat. I think the high ground they are talking about is this one. If you zoom out the other way, yeah, so the high ground is actually only this one. So yeah, I think it's an excuse. That means the Ukrainians are doing really well. I think the Russians are just making an excuse for the lack of progress. Because you see, the Ryba Road, that the attacking head-on is complicated due to the location in the low ground and the control of dominant heights around by the Ukrainian forces, which is kind of like bullshit. Okay, we move on. Over at the Avdiivka Front, so this is where a lot of interest is, where the Russians are continuing their Avdiivka offensive with the Battle of Avdiivka, in the full gear, on the top gear, with fighting reported at Novobakhmutivka region. They're attacking from the north. Now we have reports about fighting at Zheverny, at Tonenke, as well as Nevelsky. Although frontline changes suggest that there is attack at Povomaisky as well. So this is the situation. Ukrainian forces are getting hit by artillery system at Olivka. This Olivka is also one of the settlements where the Ukrainian reinforcement has arrived at. This is reported yesterday, so we will continue to see whether maybe this artillery system is trying to hit one of the commanders command HQ, because the situation here is getting really bad. And particularly bad is over within Avdiivka itself. At Avdiivka itself, Russian forces has continued to progress. You can imagine how fast this is, because we are talking about Russian progress every single day. The front line has been moving forward every single day, and they have taken even more ground this time round, and going southward towards the Avdiivka railway station. And by this point, the distance between this eastern road or highway, you can, if you want, western highway along the Avdiivka edge of the city, from the front line is merely 300 meters. So I can show you is around 300 meters. So as a result, the Russian forces basically is on the verge, or if not already have operational encirclement of the Ukrainian forces within Avdiivka, and this is really bad. Ukrainian reinforcement will find it even hard to come into to aid the Ukrainian forces, because the main road, this is the main road along Leshtokine. We have some other roads around here, but these are dirt roads, and these dirt roads are really hard to use because the Russian forces is really close. And with the Russian forces closing up this road around here, this is gone. The Russians have taken this. The Ukrainian forces in this region here, maybe it's this big, is now encircled in a way. They can still try to escape in this direction, or reinforcement coming in this direction, but it is through dirt roads, and it's going to be really hard. And you can see that the Russians are really trying to encircle them, and we are seeing this push towards Zheverny and Tonenke happening at the same time, which means that the Russians know that the Ukrainians have not much options that has left for them, and now they are trying to push and put pressure so that the reinforcement that has arrived at Leshtokine, Olivka, and Semenivka now have to deal with this new threat that is coming from the south of this new gathering point, and fighting now they have to push them back, because if not, then this will be an outer pincer. It's going to be really bad because the Russians are pushing in the north. Yeah, the situation is really bad. There's no other way to describe it's just bad. So we move on away from the Avdiivka front. Over at the New York front, we still have some reports of Russian forces attacking Pivnishny, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. So this is still a thing. Not sure what exactly is happening right here. So we just continue to wait and see if there's any geolocation or information coming out from this front line. Over at the Bakhmut front, so this is Bakhmut city. In the southern flank of the Bakhmut front, we have some progress. The Russians are taking some ground in the eastern part of Klishchiivka. Generally, the Russians are attacking Klishchiivka as well as Andriivka further south in this region here. Further north of Klishchiivka, the Russians are attacking Ivanivsky. And so this is currently the ongoing situation. It has been ongoing for some time, just that we have the confirmation of the frontline change from the Ukrainian mapping, Deep State UA's mapping, showing that the Russians have made progress in this area here. You can check it out in the frontline changes report. I've talked more about it there. I have talked more about it there in case my English is horrible. And in the northern flank, the Russians are continuing to push in the Bodanivka region, particularly down the highway. And there is geolocation of Ukrainian forces getting hit by thermobaric missiles just south of where the Russians have just captured along the highway region. So this seems to be the one that the new commander of Ukraine, Sirsky, is more concerned about. I think maybe Avdiivka, he sees it as something that is a foregone conclusion. There's nothing you can do about it. So maybe that's why, you know, his focus is now on the Bakhmut front at Chasiv Yar, because Chasiv Yar is this frontline town where or village or city that used to be, you know, the role used to be at Bakhmut. So Bakhmut had been lost. So this frontline fortress role is now taken over by Chasiv Yar. And they are very determined to defend it. There is a lot of forest region around here where the Ukrainian forces can put up very good defense and slow down the Russian advance. So that is somewhat of an advantage and a strong point in terms of Chasiv Yar. Otherwise, if they lost Chasiv Yar, of course, there's still Konstantinivka, which is another major city, which is even bigger than Bakhmut. But we will see how this progress. I'm not sure what Sirsky can do with the lack of ammunition, artillery, Air Force. So there is very limited things that the Ukrainian armed forces can do. And we move into the Siversk Front. This is a Siversk city, and the Russian forces have launched a new offensive in this area here, in a way, or renewed Siversk offensive. Fighting is now reported in the southeastern part of Vimka. There's fighting reported near Bilohorivka. There's fighting reported at Rozdolivka. So the Russians are suddenly pushing in the southern flank of the Siversk front, and this is very, very interesting. Previously, what we always have is the Russians pushing at Bilohorivka, and the Ukrainian forces is trying their best to try to hold the position, although we do have frontline changes report to show that the Russians are making slight progress in this region here. And we move in, we can see that due to the geolocation, we can see that Russians are making some progress in the eastern part of Bilohorivka. Further geolocations also show Russian forces indeed is in the area of the industrial zone, and this village is entirely flattened by now, so there isn't much to really fight for other than position. You can see all the buildings are already totally bombarded, mostly are already flattened. So it is a very sad town. Currently they are very flat, so yeah, maybe they can go for some boobs surgery so that it don't be so flat. And but don't get addicted. Later you look like balloon. It doesn't look very good. Over at Kreminna, this is a Kreminna front. At the Kreminna front, the information only have the Russians attacking Terny, and then there is a geolocation also at Terny, but of Ukrainian forces gaining some grounds. So this is so we zoom in at Terny, we can see that the front line change over at Terny. the Ukrainian forces taken some grounds in this area here due to geolocation of a Ukrainian tank getting hit by a FPV drone. But generally, the Russians are still being mentioned to be the main people that is currently on the offensive, and we shall continue to monitor how this progress over at Terny. But as you can see, what I talk about the forest, why I say the Ukrainians having forests is always a good thing, is because the Ukrainians seems to do really well at defending the forest. And Terny and Yampolivka region, there is a lot of forests in this area here, and these forests are seemingly very difficult barriers for the Russians to push through. The same thing happens in the Kupyansk Front and Sinkivka. On the western part of Sinkivka, I can show you where. At Sinkivka, similar things over in this area here. The Russians are trying really hard to push through this forest, but the Ukrainians are holding a very, very good line. At Sinkivka, the front line over here is very, very hard to change. So that's why I say the Ukrainians really good at fighting in the forest region, at least defending. And further north, in the southern part of the Svatove Front, there is a geolocation of Bradley getting hit by a T-90 in the long distance shot, and the location of the Bradley suggests that the Ukrainian forces actually have a lot more grounds than previously understood near on the western part of Novovodyan, and this is interesting, and this helps us to clarify our front line. And we move further up north. There's nothing else over the Svatove Front, and we move into the Kupyansk Front. We didn't have the reports about the Russians attacking at Avdiivka, but we do have the frontline changes suggesting it. According to the information from Deep State UA, the Russian forces apparently at Avdiivka, which is here, attacked from Olyansky and heading westward in this area here, taking a pretty important forest lines or forest regions in the north of Avdiivka. And the Ukrainians would have to fall back to this ridge line or something, or valley region to defend. And let's go into the Google Earth again to take a look at what it is, because I haven't checked it earlier. So we go into the Avdiivka region. So this is Olyansky, this is Avdiivka, and the Russians have successfully taken all these trees, all this forest region. You can see all this forest region, and this is actually a valley. So the Russians have taken these grounds. They are pushing in this direction. They are moving up, and the Ukrainians can actually defend themselves along the ridge line. And for the Russians to go over in this direction, they'll have to go down a valley. This is the valley region. They have to go down the valley, whilst the Ukrainians can have a high ground position defending this area here. So if I put it in this way, you can probably see it better. The Ukrainians can hold this high ground, and the Russians will have to go down before they can go upwards. So moving in this area will be susceptible to fire attack. So the Ukrainians will have a very good defensive position in this area here. So which is translates to this area here. This is where the Ukrainians will have to hold a good line, I believe. And I see on the other side, do we have another thing? Yeah, so the others are just the rivers, river valleys kind of thing, small little river valleys. So the Ukrainians can have this defense along Avdiivka, and have another line of defense behind us at Stepova, Novoselivka. So these are very, very good natural geographic defensive positions. The Russians pushing in these directions, we're going to start to find a lot of problems in this area here. So we will continue to see, but Russians have a superior advantage in terms of artillery system and air superiority. So they can do a lot of bombardments and airstrikes along the defensive lines where the Ukrainians are holding position. So yeah, so it's not a clear-cut thing for the Ukrainian forces to just defend. We shall see how this goes. And yeah, we have nothing else because of the lack of reporting from the Ukrainian and the Russian side. So that's it. So this is the summary for the day of 717 for the 10th of February. Do press the like button, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next update.